and welcome back to another episode of Beyond the To-Do List. I'm your host, Eric Fisher, and this is the show where we talk to the people behind the productivity. This week we're going to talk about a thing behind the productivity, a thing that is a tool that is one of my favorites, Textexpander. Yes, Textexpander is one of my favorite productivity tools. In fact, it is probably one of the ones I use all day, every day. Now that I think about it, that is actually true. I have Greg Scown, one of the creators of Textexpander, on the show this week. I'm thrilled to bring this to you because, honestly, there probably isn't a tool that I use as much as Textexpander to get more done and get things done faster. And those are two of the biggest things when it comes to productivity, is getting more done and things done faster. So Textexpander is that tool. We're going to talk all about what it is, how it automates your text and speeds up your processes, personal and shared. Not to mention moving into intermediate and even some power tips and tricks and tools for those of you who are already Textexpander users. So stay tuned. And actually, at the end of this episode, if you stay tuned, I have a promo code for Textexpander that will allow you to save a certain discount off the purchase of Textexpander if you have not purchased it and are interested in doing so. Before we get into that conversation, I want to say thank you to our new sponsor for Beyond the To-Do List, Nozbe. Nozbe is a task management system that is used by 300,000 people, helping them be effective in getting their tasks and projects done solo or in their teams. Nozbe is a system that is spread all across all different platforms and devices: the Mac, Windows, Linux, Android, iPad, iPhone, even your Apple Watch. Nozbe is doing a special offer for Beyond the To-Do List fans. You can try Nozbe Pro for 30 days. And when you're ready to buy, you'll save 10% using the coupon code TODO. What does that 30-day pro account get you? It gets you unlimited private and shared projects, tasks, categories, data, everything. Again, free apps on the web, the Mac, Windows, Android, iPad, iPhone, Apple Watch. All the Nozbe collaboration features to use for yourself and your team. And you get additional productivity tips, videos, tutorials, articles. You need to start using Nozbe now so you can be productive. Again, that Nozbe Pro free trial. To get that, go to Nozbe. That's nozbe.com/todo. That's nozbe.com/TODO. This week, it is my privilege to welcome to the show Greg Scown. Greg, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you very much. I think it's my privilege to be here.
Well, thank you very much for saying that. You are from Smile Software, which is the maker of one of my favorite pieces of software, Textexpander, among a couple other pieces. Let's see, PDF Pen. I'm forgetting a couple others, but you guys make awesome stuff.
Yes, so, I mean, mainly we focus on PDF Pen and Textexpander, and then we also focus on the fact that we have the products available for the Mac, the iPad, and the iPhone.
Yes, and that's awesome. I love the fact that you have that now. I think that was when, I was a Textexpander fan for a long time, and I didn't have a Mac, and then I got one, and I thought, yeah, I should probably get Textexpander at some point, but it was really when the iOS version came out, and even then, that was a little bit of a, I don't know, I'm getting into too much nuts and bolts here right off the bat, but the idea that I could take my Textexpander snippets and sync them to my phone was appealing, but it just didn't work saying it didn't work is not the way to put it, but saying it didn't work like we thought it should work and now does work is maybe a better way of putting it. I don't know. So we'll get into that.
That makes total sense. I understand.
Yeah, we'll get into that. But again, I'm kind of doing this series here where I'm asking people that are from these places or that make these tools that I love and use every day to come on and, one, acclimate people to what the tool is, and two, teach me a little bit because there's always room to learn, and then three, kind of give out some master tips, tricks, whatever. So let's get started with this, with Textexpander. And from the very lowest level, someone who's never heard that word Textexpander or who has heard that word a number of times but doesn't know what it is, what is Textexpander?
Sure. So at its heart, Textexpander is a communication improvement product. It's out to save you time and to improve the consistency of your communication. At the very, very basic level, you can set up short abbreviations that expand into larger pieces of text. For example, I have an abbreviation capital T, small x, which expands to Textexpander. And when you consider the fact that I type Textexpander several hundred times in the course of a day, that's incredibly convenient, and it actually saves me a lot of typing and a lot of time. I have much larger snippets, abbreviations that expand into much larger snippets, such as my email signature, which is SigGreg, and includes my phone number, my Skype, and today's marketing message from Smile. And then, you can take it even further, but really at its heart, the idea is that you're typing in short abbreviations that expand into longer pieces of text. You're saving yourself time. And when you're doing something repetitively, then you're able to be consistent. So for example, if you're doing support replies, you can have the same abbreviation expand to the same reply that you're doing over and over again.
Awesome. I almost like to look at it as if you know the code word, then the secret phrase will pop out.
Well, the great thing is that folks who've been using Textexpander for a long time use it that way, which is you have your abbreviation and you kind of memorize them and you know them. But frankly, Textexpander can do even more than that, which is that if you know a single word from the expanded text, you actually can set up a little hotkey. So you type the beginning or a portion of what you think you need. You hit the hotkey to do an inline search, and then up comes a list of all of the snippets that you have that match. So you can actually use Textexpander without abbreviations at all.
Oh yeah, so that's almost like a snippet archive.
Yeah, I mean,
you can treat, yeah, that's great.
You can treat your snippets as essentially your own personal knowledge base.
That's cool. I hadn't even thought about approaching it that way because I'm one of those people who, really has memorized those core, 10 to 20 snippets that I use all the time. And then the rest of them are ones where they're either accidental fixes to cover myself, which we should talk about for a sec, or some of those other ones where it's longer and it's automatic and things like that.
Yes, absolutely. And in fact, I'm thinking about, I never remember the abbreviation for screenshot. I just cannot for some reason internalize that, but I know that screen appears in the text. And so I just type screen, I hit the hotkey, and then up comes my list, and it's the first one on the list.
Yeah, that's awesome. I just hinted at the one where it's kind of like, it's really good for, it's almost a better version. Let's put it this way. It's almost a better version of autocorrect for your Mac.
Sure, absolutely. So you can set up an abbreviation for a common misspelling. For example, I love to misspell around. For some reason, I'm obsessed with putting 2 R's in it. I know full well that it doesn't, but it doesn't matter. My muscle memory has 2 R's in around. And so I have an abbreviation for around with 2 R's, which expands to around with 1 R. So it's an easy way to fix your own common spelling bugbears.
Yeah, I have one with the word because, and I always put UA instead of AU for some reason.
Uh-huh.
So I have that programmed in that as soon as I type in, let's see, it's BECUA, and there's no other word that I'm going to type that's going to have that. As soon as I do that, it actually gives me the little boop, and it replaces it with the correct spelling, which is nice.
So now there are folks who are easily convinced at expanding short abbreviations into larger pieces of text because they type all the time and that's important to them. But there's also the idea of using Textexpander for personalization. So for example, you have a response, maybe your sales follow-up that you do commonly, but you don't want to send this completely generic, dear customer, comma, it was a pleasure to speak with you recently, as opposed to, and so you can set up a snippet that has dear, fill in the blank, customer name, comma, it was a pleasure to speak with you, pop up yesterday, today, last week, so that you can very, very quickly do something that you do repeatedly, but do it with, a good level of personalization.
Yeah, it's nuanced. It's not, dear sir or madam. And it's not even just going the one extra level of swapping out dear sir or madam to dear insert name. Although this can do that. It's also that level of you can select yes or no or different circumstantial correspondence pieces to it. So it's less form letter like.
Yes. Well, and then the other thing that it does that's kind of handy is that it makes you consistent. So you don't have to worry about proofreading your sales follow-up email every single time because you've proofread the snippet that you use.
Yes, yeah, because you already know that those are all pre-approved and you yourself selected the right pieces, so it's already done.
Exactly.
Which is very cool. Some people getting started with this would think, okay, but how do I know how to get started? How do I know how to name what are the proper naming conventions in terms of my abbreviations? And how would you suggest someone who's just getting started, maybe doesn't have a system in place yet?
Sure. So that depends a little bit on you. I think there are a few things to consider. The first is, are you going to use it on the Mac and iOS? And most likely you are, in which case you want to bear in mind when setting your abbreviations that the keyboard on an iPad or an iPhone doesn't have punctuation on the front of the keyboard. And so using punctuation characters as you might consider doing. So for example, you might use an uncommon punctuation like a backslash or a semicolon. That won't work so well on iOS in the sense that you have to switch keyboards to do that. So that's probably your first consideration. What folks have done as an easy workaround to that is use either an uncommon letter like X, Q, or Z, or double up on a letter. And I believe one of our very highly published users, Dr. Drang, uses double J. So
yes. Yeah. And I know that I've kind of adopted the X mostly because David Sparks suggested to use it. So
yeah. So, you have to kind of pick what works for you. And in fact, actually, as much as I appreciate the systems for abbreviations, I probably use 3 different ones depending on the abbreviation that I'm going for. So I'll actually use double X from time to time. For our support stuff, we actually use sort of a dot notation. They will abbreviate the product dot and then the abbreviation for the reply. So for example, TE5 dot V5 is my abbreviation for here's what's new in version 5 of Textexpander.
Okay.
So you may find that for different uses, you actually use different abbreviation schema. I'm sure this is sacrilege to some of our users too. So, I'm going to get myself in trouble by saying that I actually do all of the above. But you have to do what works for you.
Right.
Picking abbreviations is fairly personal. And I think the main thing is get started and don't be afraid to get started. You can always go back and change them.
Well, and one of the key pieces that you guys have baked in one of the more recent versions has been suggested snippets, which somebody ideally could just install it, leave it open, and just start going about their work as usual. And they would get these suggestions saying, you've typed insert here, whatever it is, several times. And then you would start to get a hint at, I could start saving time by creating a snippet for that.
Yes, absolutely. And that's super handy for finding the relatively short things that you type frequently that are not dictionary words. So product names or email addresses or things like that. The suggested snippets may not be so handy for finding the long form stuff that you do because you typically don't type that out without any, error, repetition, cursor movement. So it's great for finding the things that you do that are short and not dictionary items.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I, for a while there had it on, but I turned it off just because I'm like, I'm comfortable. I'm good. But part of me feels like I'm going to turn it back on just to see if there's anything that I'm not aware of that I'm doing a lot of. It's one of those good things to have as kind of a background monitor of what I'm doing and maybe coach me and help me. So.
Oh, yeah. No, absolutely. I discovered the other day through that I had somehow deleted the snippet from my phone number. And so it's like, you've typed this a number of times, maybe you should make an abbreviation. It's like, oh yeah, maybe I should have already had that abbreviation. So it's handy. The other thing, the flip side of it is also handy, which is that once you get started using the product and have a few abbreviations set up, if you then type it out long form, Textexpander will say, by the way, you have an abbreviation set up for that, so you might want to use it. So for example, if I am typing my phone number out and I do have an abbreviation, it will say, okay, by the way, you can type TTEL instead of typing your number 510 dash blah, 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 blah.
Ah, yes. That's cool. I didn't know you could do that.
Yeah. So it's, that's super handy to get recommendations for abbreviations that you already have.
Well, and one of the things that I've done, two different things actually. One was just get started and kind of put in 5 different ones that I think I'm going to use and not worry so much about what I'm naming it. Just try to practice using it. And then by practicing using it and using it more often, I realized, what might be a better piece of content or text to have here, or a better abbreviation. That rhythm starts to happen as like with anything, you start using something, you realize, I can use this better if I tweak this way or that way. The other key piece, though, is that you guys allow for importing of other people's snippets, which has been really helpful because once in a while it's just like, man, there's got to be somebody out there who's figured out a way to make, who's done a ton of like cool date stamp stuff, or maybe OmniFocus stuff. Like if they use, a certain tool that I also use and they use Textexpander and they've got that figured out. So that's pretty cool too.
Oh, you bet. No, absolutely. I can totally understand that.
I'm trying to think of what some other ones are. Oh, there's one. I got another one that's pretty cool, actually. But go ahead. You were going to say something.
Sorry, I was just thinking the other thing to keep in mind also for folks who are new to Textexpander and just getting started is that when you first launch Textexpander, it will actually walk you through creating a couple of snippets. And in particular, the snippets will be your telephone number, your home address, your email address, possibly your email signature and things like that. And it will also give you the chance to practice expanding them. So there is a bit of, getting started that's there that's designed to welcome you to Textexpander and to equip you with something that you can use right from the start.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a really cool, the onboarding process there that's already set up. And I love that. I also love the fact that, again, like I said, at a certain point, Textexpander became infinitely more usable for me because I was able to take everything I'd already built on the desktop over to my phone, and to be able to answer emails, not just with a yes or a no, but with, actual like sentences and stuff that was already, pre-planned and everything right on my mobile while out and about. That just blew my mind.
Yeah, no, we're really excited. I mean, our history on iOS is interesting in that really until iOS 8, Textexpander was of sort of modest use on iOS. You could have all your snippets. You could edit them. You could expand them within Textexpander. You could expand them within, say, about 100 or so apps that had implemented our SDK. And certainly the productivity apps that are important to folks did do that, which is fantastic. But you couldn't use it everywhere, and that's not the way that it works on the Mac. In the Mac, you can use it in any app, which is, great. And in fact, frequently is a better choice than defining shortcuts that are app specific. And with the introduction of iOS 8, we were able to add the Textexpander keyboard. And so now you can expand snippets in any app on iOS. And that was a game changer for me personally as well, because we have, a support app that we were able to use on the iPhone. It was from a large company who were not to be persuaded to implement the Textexpander SDK. And so it was just impossible to do support on the phone because it was just impossible.
Yeah.
And now with the keyboard, I have access to all my snippets. They're available, and I am nearly as efficient doing support on a phone or an iPad as I am on the Mac. And that was just a fantastic game changer. It was really wonderful.
Yeah, that was, as soon as I heard that keyboard functionality was there, and somebody, I don't know if it had been officially announced yet from you guys, but I know somebody said, what if? And I thought, oh my gosh, that would be a game changer. And then, and I don't ever use that word game changer. I just hate using it, but it came about and it really, really was. I mean, it made me so much more productive on the phone side of things and the iPad for that matter, I should say.
Yeah. And I mean, even for our work, it was very interesting. So, we showed up at WWDC and they announced custom keyboards. And all of a sudden we realized that, wow, for the next, several months and before the release of iOS 8, this is what we're going to be doing because we really have no choice. I mean, not in a bad way. It's just, the technology to do what we need has arrived and we must meet it.
Yeah, definitely. There's some other features here that I was interested in asking you about. For example, could you to explain a little bit more about what a nested snippet is?
Okay, sure. So a nested snippet is when you have expanded text and another snippet within it. I think probably the best example is my email signature, which I alluded to earlier. So I have basic plain text that's my name, my email, my phone number, my Skype, etc. And then I have the Smile marketing message. Well, my signature doesn't change all that often, but the Smile marketing message does. So I've separated them into the two snippets. I have the snippet Sig Greg for my signature, and I have the snippet Sig Sup, signature supplemental, which is the marketing message. And so at the end of Sig Greg, I include Sig Sup, and then the combination of both is what gets expanded. And that way, whenever we change the content of the marketing message, it changes in my email address. The other neat thing is that I have signatures for when I'm doing support for Textexpander or PDF Pen, which include exactly the same marketing message, which comes from exactly the same snippet. And so that one marketing message is shared in three places by virtue of using it as a nested snippet.
How do you sync that? I mean, do you sync, let's see, Sig Sup, that's what you said was the changing variable there. Where the marketing message changes. Does somebody else change that or do you change that?
Well, so what we do is we have a URL-based snippet group. And so this is getting into the sort of more advanced end of things. But you can set up a snippet group that is pulled from a web server. And we have that set up for some of our shared support snippets. And then Maya, who does marketing and PR for Smile, edits the marketing message snippet. So not only am I sharing the nested snippet for my signature, but everyone is sharing it for theirs as well.
Yeah, that was what I assumed. I thought, wait a second, somebody else has got to be switching this for you, and that way you don't have to think about it because
right.
Having the trigger there, but not having the snippet be something that you yourself are swapping out. Otherwise it's you may as well just swap it out yourself. So,
right.
How are you guys doing that again? Where you've got one place where there's a certain amount of snippets that are then be able to be synced to multiple people, even though you've got your own system too?
Yeah. Well, right. I mean, again, that's where we've got it sitting on a web server, and we have Maya who's going up there and editing that group. So she's replacing the content that's on the web server with her edited version of that content, and she is the manager of that content.
Okay.
Now, if one were to gaze into one's crystal ball and think a bit about the future of Textexpander, then simplifying that process of sharing and storage and making the centralized storage and sharing of snippets easier than it is now might be a way we might be headed.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm getting at is I thought that would be really cool to be able to have, my own system of stuff that I've worked together and I know works best for me may not work, and it may not work best for somebody else. But we've also got these common snippets that either we all want to make sure we have, which again, you could just import, or somehow sync just those. Mm-hmm. That's interesting. I would love to. Well, I guess as a Textexpander user, I have your ear, you have my ear, I have your ear, whichever one that is. Yeah, that's a really good idea. I would love to see that because being able to deploy Textexpander across an entire team of people and have, one person in charge of updating snippets and things like that sounds really cool.
Yes, it certainly does.
I guess, is there any other like super cool like things that once you figured out or implemented them, even though you've been around since the beginning, anything that just you've been super excited about as time has gone on in the past, few versions?
Oh, it's just always exciting because it's something that I use every day. But I did have a sort of aha moment with nested snippets myself, where we have a number of predefined groups. There's accented words, there's common misspellings, and there's some others. And one of them is the Internet Productivity Group. And that group just contains a few things for doing essentially URL expansion and URL verification. So if you're using Bitly and you have something on the clipboard, URL on the clipboard, you can just type, /bit.ly, and then it will do the shortening for you. The problem is that particular snippet needs some setup, right? It has to have your account name and your API key. And what we had been doing is telling people, well, download the group, duplicate it, and then go in and edit it and put your information in there. But it occurred to me that if we had a nested snippet that wasn't even in the Internet Productivity Group, we could do two things. First of all, we could tell you that it's not there when it isn't. And the second is that we could instruct you on how to create your own snippet for your account and for your API key. And so we revised that to make the process easier. And it's kind of an aha moment for me. It's like, oh, this is a thing that we've had forever, and we weren't using it to its fullest ability, which is it lets you put a nested snippet inside essentially a read-only group. And then you supply the content for the nested snippet in your read-write group.
Okay.
And then they work together.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's okay. I think I'm following you. So then how does that play out? If I get what you're saying describe what that looks like from the user end. Like, that's all set up. Now what do I do? And what does it output?
Sure. So let's say the first time you do this, you grab the Internet Productivity Group, you just add it via the file menu. And you see that one of them is /bit.ly. And so you copy a URL onto the clipboard and you type /bit.ly. And it says, Bitly now requires you to have an account and specify your login and API key. Please create snippets with abbreviations of my_Bitly_login and my_Bitly_API key and the corresponding values. So then you go ahead and do as it says, and you make a new snippet with an abbreviation of my Bitly login, set the content to your Bitly login. You make another one with my Bitly API key. You set that to your API key, and you're set.
Got it. Yeah, that is cool. That's definitely a time saver in a lot of ways.
Yeah. So it was really, exciting to find a new use for something that's been there for quite a while, and to solve a problem for users in a sort of more elegant way and in a, forward-looking way, because now we can update the Internet Productivity Group. Let's say that Bitly changes their API, which is not unknown to happen. We can update that group. It's automatically set to update weekly. You can even hit the Update Now button in the group, and it will pull the latest content, but it doesn't need you to change your API key or to change your login because they're stored outside that group.
Right. Okay. I get that. That makes sense.
So, let's say that you're not going to go deep into the extreme nerdery. Then other things that you can do, we did talk about fill-ins, and, we talked about you can do a name or you can do a pop-up. The other thing that you can do in a fill-in that's super handy is you can have an optional text section. So you can toggle on or off a piece of text that comes out in your reply. So, you might have one for back order. So you can do all somebody's order information and then toggle the information about a back order on only if that order is in fact a back order. And that can be handy. Another thing that we've added is we have a preview of your expanded snippet. So if you're going to use maybe date macros, so you set up, you want the month to appear and you want the day to appear and you want them to appear in a particular format, there's an insert menu to do all that. But, when you're done, you want to kind of see it live and make sure that it's actually working. And so we've added a preview to make that easier to prepare.
Okay, that's cool. And you used a word there, macros, that unless you grew up in a cubicle or have that nerdy tendency, you may not know what that means. So what's the difference between a macro and like a snippet?
Sure. So a macro is something that appears within a snippet, and it expands to something other than what it appears as. So, for example, you're defining a snippet and you insert. You typically don't need to memorize these. Basically, you'll go to the insert menu, you'll choose date, and you'll choose year. And when you do that, you'll see in your snippet comes %Y. And then when you expand that snippet, or when you preview that snippet, the %Y will expand to 2015.
Gotcha. So it's almost like, and this is actually where I've heard it the most, the word macro being used in conjunction with a Microsoft Excel file, where a certain slot of data, the outcome in a certain cell changes based on what you input in the other cells. And that's kind of what this is.
Sure. It's similar. I mean,
similar.
It's pretty straightforward in the sense that maybe the other most common macro that we have is %clipboard. And so you can put that wherever you want in your snippet content, and the content of the clipboard will appear there when you expand. So whatever the current content of the clipboard is what's going to appear. And so the idea is that these items take what is current. So for the date, they take what's current. Or for the clipboard, they take what is current. Or for a nested snippet, they take whatever the current value of that nested snippet is.
Yeah. And so in that way, it's in a sense thinking for you and grabbing that current stuff, and you don't have to remember it. It brings it in automatically.
Exactly. And I mean, one of the handier abbreviations is D-date, which is, today's date in a format that is the one that you most commonly use. So if you're a letter writer, then it would probably be, or if you're a North American English letter writer, then it would be, the long month name, the date and comma, and the long year. And if you're, a MySQL database person, then it's going to be the date in ISO standard format. So, you can set up your abbreviation to format however you need, and then you never have to think about, gosh, what is today's date? You just think, okay, I type D-date and I'm done.
Yeah. Well, and that's one of the cool things too, just that I was realizing, is the ability to organize your snippets into different groups inside of your Textexpander installation, because then you can have all those different versions of, well, here's the date for today, here's a different format for something else, here's a time, here's all that, here's my biographical information, phone number, home address, work address, all that kind of stuff, and have all these other different groups as well.
Yes, absolutely.
I really love doing that. That was one of the things where once I had enough time under my belt and had created all of the things that I thought I was going to create, I obviously went on and made more, but I grouped them that way so that I could look them up quicker. But I think that was prior to being able to search and type in a portion of the snippet itself to bring it up. So
sure. Although I would say that certainly grouping is still a good idea, because it gives you a bit of information if you're trying to review your snippets, and it also gives you sort of obvious cut points for snippets that you might want to share with other people.
Yeah. Are there any cool integrations between Textexpander and the other Smile softwares?
Between Textexpander and PDFpen, well, there aren't necessarily explicit integrations because one of the nice things about Textexpander is that it's available in any app.
True.
What I find myself doing pretty often is I will have a form open in PDFpen, a PDF fillable form, and I will essentially use Textexpander to provide similar capability to autofill, because I can just type TTEL for my telephone number and AADDR for my address, and those fill in this fillable form. So I won't say that we've missed an opportunity on integration in a sense. I think that Textexpander being ubiquitously available, it's not necessary for us to do some sort of tight integration with PDFpen. It's just there and as easy to use as anywhere else.
Yeah, like in other words, the integration's already there for more than just PDFpen and the other software pieces.
Exactly. The integration is there.
And everything else.
Yeah, that's what you need.
System-wide.
Yeah.
And that's true. And honestly, that's the way I think of it these days. It has been, the past, few different computers or times where I've done a reinstall of the operating system, it's one of my basic utility. Like it's install your favorite browser if it's not Safari on a Mac, and then maybe one other thing. Oh, 1Password.
One password. Exactly.
Obviously.
Because you need to get into your Dropbox so that then you can share your snippets.
And then it's Textexpander. I mean, it really literally is. That is the order. And then maybe there's two others I think that, I make sure are there. But it's as if it's a missing utility program that I have to install or nothing works. So.
Yeah, launch bar is up there for me too. That's next after Textexpander.
Yes. So let's see. Are there any other like really cool like ninja secrets to Textexpander that we can share?
Sure. At the risk of going slightly deep geekery again, the one thing that we added in Textexpander 5 is JavaScript as a snippet type. In general, Textexpander has plain text, formatted text and images, and then also supports snippets that are AppleScript and shell scripts, and it has done so for some time. And then we added JavaScript. And JavaScript is interesting because it runs on both the Mac and on iOS. You can't really do AppleScript integrations. You can't do them at all on iOS, but you can do JavaScripts that execute on the Mac and on iOS. And so anything that you do that you write in JavaScript, you'll be able to use on iOS. And in fact, you can even use it on iOS from the Textexpander keyboard.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's cool. I'm not a huge like JavaScript coding person, but I can see where that would be a benefit for sure.
Yeah. I mean, the kinds of manipulations that you might want to do, it has very rich string manipulations. It has very rich date manipulations. And so it's super handy across platform.
Okay. What are some of the things do you think, somebody has started, they've gotten started, they've set up, their basics, they've gone through the onboarding process of doing the tutorial, and they've potentially even pulled in somebody else's snippets and then commandeered them for their own or modified them to make them work for themselves. What's that next step of really truly making it work for you? How do you really turn Textexpander into something that works for you?
Sure. I think the next step is sort of the standard step with all productivity software, which is you think about, okay, what are the things that I do repetitively? And so in the case of Textexpander, what are the things that I do repetitively with text, whether it be in email or in a browser or things that I use text for all the time. And then you can start by doing big blocks of text that you do all the time in Textexpander and then editing them as you go along to improve them. Here's your ninja trick, which is that in the Textexpander menu, there is an item called Edit Last Expanded Snippet. So you expand something and you want to make a change. You want to make a correction, you want to improve the grammar, you want to brighten the wording. You can immediately go to the Textexpander menu after you've expanded the snippet and edit it right away. And I do that all the time. In fact, I have a hotkey for it because that way I constantly improve the quality of what I'm expanding.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I hadn't thought about that. So it's almost like a snippet audit.
Yeah, exactly. And so you can do it right as you're going along and bake it into what you do. Anytime you see something expand that could be better, go ahead and right away make it better because there's no time like the present.
And I see then why that's a parallel to any other productivity tool is that sometimes we think, oh, I've got this new tool. It's going to make my life awesome now. And the problem is we think that it's already set up to work best for us. And what it really means is that you've got to spend a little bit of time being dedicated to making this tool fit your, workflow, I guess, best word.
Sure. And I mean, there's the fantastic graphic of, how many times I do an operation in a day equals I can afford this much time to make it better.
True.
And so, if you think about it that way, if you have a piece of text that you're using 20 times a day, you can afford a minute or two to make that better because over time you will get that minute or two back times 20.
Yeah, to be able to see how much time Textexpander saves you in the long run, graphically even, and to say, okay, yeah, I can definitely dedicate that amount of time to making it work even better, or fully set it up to begin with, for that matter.
And I mean, Textexpander makes its own pitch for this. So if you click the statistics button in the toolbar, it'll tell you how many snippets you've expanded, how many characters you've saved, how many hours you've saved based on your typing speed, and it can graph that for you as well.
Yeah, I'm taking a look at that right now, actually.
And for fun, it has a button to let you tweet your stats.
Yeah, I actually just clicked it.
Nice.
That's awesome. Greg, I don't know if there's anywhere else we can really go other than telling people to just get their hands on it and start using it. Unfortunately, or fortunately, I don't know, depending upon your perspective, it is only for the Mac and iOS, but you guys have any interest in branching out to Windows at all?
You never know what the future holds, but I think that let's do the basics on the product. So it's available from our website, smilesoftware.com. You can download it and give it a shot, kick the tires, a free demo. You have to expand 100 snippets, you have to save an hour, and you have to have used the product for at least 30 days before it'll bug you to purchase other than at launch time. And you can save up to 5 hours before it'll finally stop working on you. So we really want you to give a shot at it, kick the tires, make sure that you're comfortable with it. And, we'll continue to make our case in the statistics because you know the value of an hour of your time. And once you've saved an hour of your time, it's pretty quick. Textexpander itself is $44.95 on the Mac, and it's $4.95 on iOS. They are separate independent purchases because the two app stores are separate and independent, and our friends in Cupertino have not yet found a means for us to bundle software from both. Perhaps they will in the future, and we look forward to that. And what else? There are video tutorials on our site that are done by Max Sparky, the amazing David Sparks, and you can also find them via the help menu by selecting video tutorials.
Awesome. Yeah, and some people balk at prices being higher for certain apps, things like that. My thought is ultimately you buy it once and you have it, and it saves you all that time. And how much is your time really worth? Well, I think it's worth the $44.99?
$44.95, but yeah.
95, yes. To get that much more of your time back. I mean, heck, you can't rent or hire an assistant for some of this stuff that's going to do it as well as you can yourself with this tool for that price. But on top of that, you guys come out with, let's see, 4 was when? Textexpander 4 was what? 2012
I believe
or 13?
12, exactly. Yeah. I believe 2012.
And then 5 was this year? Or was it late last year? I forget now.
5 was May of this year.
This year. So there's years where you are on the latest software and you're getting the latest updates for free, and then you pay an upgrade license fee instead of buying it all new again. So, which is what I've been doing this whole time.
Wonderful. Thank you. We appreciate that.
Yeah. So it's been well worth it. I mean, in other words, I reinvest in Textexpander every time you guys make an upgrade, and it's always been well worth it. And again, yeah, I hope people go check it out and try it out. Try out that free demo, and you'll get a lot of use out of it before you have to pay to make it continue working. And by then you'll know if it's for you or not.
Absolutely. So. And also bear in mind that we provide support. And so, there's contact support from the help menu. We, to date, we strive to answer our tech support emails in all of them in under 24 hours, and most of them a lot faster than that. So, that's something that we take very seriously. We have the video tutorials. We have detailed online help that's been professionally edited. So, we have the whole package for you.
Yeah. And it's one of my key things here to say is I've never needed your help.
So, that's fantastic. I love that.
Yeah, I said that to somebody else, and I thought, oh, it sounds almost like it's an insult, but it's actually a higher form of compliment that even if I did need you, you'd be there, but I didn't even need you. It was that great. So
that's fantastic.
Greg, it has been awesome to talk with you, and I think, people will excuse us geeking out a little bit this time around and talking about this one tool specifically, but I think it's one of those really key tools. Again, it's become one of my cornerstone tools, one of my utilities, if you will. And I just am glad you were able to come on the show and talk about it. Thanks for being here.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure to be here.
I hope that you're walking away from this episode with just insane drive to go grab Textexpander if you don't already have it. Or if you already are a user, to go in and clean up what you're already doing, or organize better, or hit that pause, take that time, spend an hour or so, and just get fully set up inside Textexpander to be ready to go. Also, I promised at the beginning of the show that I would give you a promo code that if you did not yet own Textexpander, and you can go grab that for 20% off. go to smilesoftware.com, which is where you can download a free trial if you wish. But once you're ready to purchase, use the promo code TODO. That's TODO. Thanks again for listening to this episode, and thank you again to Nozbe for supporting Beyond the To-Do List. Make sure to go check out Nozbe at nozbe.com/TODO. That will take you right to a landing page where you can sign up to get a free Nozbe Pro trial for 30 days. And again, Nozbe is cross-platform, web, Mac, Windows, Android, iPad, iPhone, yes, even Apple Watch. Go check it out over at nozbe.com/todo. That's nozbe.com/TODO. Thanks again for listening. I will see you next episode. Beyond the To-Do List is a proud member of the Noodle Mix Network. Find more of our award-winning and award-nominated podcasts to make you think, laugh, and succeed at noodle.mx.